Dr. J. Franklin Schultz with a police perspective. Today, I want to talk about police accountability. There has been a hue and cry over the past decade, and actually in many other periods of American history in the last 100 years, really, about holding police accountable, but it's been particularly intense in the last decade. And it is a mythology to say that there is no police accountability. And let me tell you several ways how police are very accountable. One is, and I'm starting at the bottom tier, when a police officer is subject to an accusation or an investigation, they necessarily maintain the taint of guilt or suspicion, the old where there's smoke, there's fire. So an officer can come out completely justified, completely an unsubstantiated charge, whatever, and they're still going to have this lingering suspicion, this nagging, this personal sense of insult that their career has been impugned. And that can impact in very subtle ways a person's ability to get promoted, to get choice assignments, to continue in their career uninterrupted. Again, even if they come out completely squeaky clean, not merely unsubstantiated, but completely squeaky clean in whatever they might have been accused of. So there is that accountability. Now you say, how's that accountability if they're accused of something and they're found that didn't happen or that it's not substantiated? Because it sends a message to every police officer that nobody is beyond suspicion, nobody is beyond investigation, nobody is beyond accusation. And so while it may put a little pallor or damper or disincentive to be assertive or to do some proactive policing, it also does have this restraint capacity on police officers to make them think twice about whether they want to engage in a certain activity or not. Secondly, even if something doesn't go into the criminal or civil stage, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, there are agency kinds of punishments that happen. And again, black mark on the record, loss of vacation time or leave time or having to work a day without pay. Again, it might keep you from getting a promotion and having some progress. And so there is accountability with local agency disciplines. Then if we move up into the accountability ladder, there is the possibility of being criminally charged in state court. Now, as a police officer, you would have the right to lay hands on somebody in order to make a lawful arrest. If, however, you exceed what is lawful, or if the arrest was totally unfounded, now you can still detain people on suspicion, and there's a whole level and range of things that you have to know before you lay hands on somebody and the degree to which you can lay hands on somebody. But if you do so without legal justification, then that's no different than a stranger coming up and laying hands on you without justification. So you can be charged with assault, for example. You can be charged criminally with false restraint, those kinds of things. So that's one other layer of accountability. Then you can also be sued in state court. Now, typically attorneys want to go after the deep pockets. So where's the money? The money is in the city coffers or state coffers or the insurance companies or the insurance coverage that a city or entity might have. But individual officers can absolutely be held personally accountable financially as well. And particularly in an enlightened state like Colorado that has mandated that individual officers be personally financially responsible for in state lawsuits and cannot be covered by some other indemnification. I don't think that's true for any other profession in the state, but by golly, we want to make sure that we have accountability in our state. Of course, we've also done away with qualified immunity, which is a whole other topic. So there's state lawsuit. And then We can also be charged, I say we, I still consider myself in the Brotherhood, we can be charged in policing with a federal criminal charge, a federal charge of violating somebody's civil rights. So, in addition to being sued, which is the another layer, you can be sued federally. You can also be charged criminally federally, and all of these things can be in the same in the same action. So if you have and they have different levels of proof required. So in lawsuits, both federal and state, there is probably more than likely. So that's the preponderance of evidence, whereas proof beyond a reasonable doubt is required for criminal charges. So even if you are criminally charged and are acquitted, or there's a criminal investigation and there's no formal charge, you can still be sued because the types of evidence that are admissible in a civil case as opposed to a criminal case, which has more constitutional protection, and the level of proof required is less in a civil suit. So there are all kinds of different ways to get in trouble. Now, if you are sued in federal court, the state claims can be taken under what they call pendent jurisdiction. So you might not have to go through two separate court proceedings, but it's very entirely possible that you go through 4 court proceedings, 2 federal, 2 state. Now, why does the federal jurisdiction the feds have jurisdiction over individual police officers in Fudgeville, in some state? Because the 14th Amendment, which really didn't see the light of day very much until the 1960s as it applies to law enforcement, was a post-Civil War amendment that gave full citizenship rights to anybody born in the United States, and that was designed to bring slaves into full citizenship. Obviously, it took a little while for that to get closer to reality, but that's what the 14th Amendment was designed to do. And within that 14th Amendment, they said, by the way, any government entity, not just the feds, but any government entity that deprives somebody of their civil rights or federally protected rights, could be a constitutional right or it could be one that was established by statute, like Title IX, for example. So, anytime any government actor, somebody acting under color of law, does something that deprives somebody of their civil rights, their protected civil rights, they can be civilly sued and criminally sued. Now, so that's the personal cost, the agency discipline, state criminal, federal criminal, state lawsuit, federal lawsuit. And then finally, in terms of accountability for the whole agency, there's 3 branches of government, right? There's legislative and executive and judicial. And I always ask this of my classes, under which of those branches of government do we find law enforcement? And a lot of people will say judicial. No, it's executive. It is an executive function. So if the public being served by a law enforcement agency, state, local, county, district, federal, is dissatisfied with the overall level of police service, then they can change the executive on the assumption that a new executive, a new regime, a new administration would change the tenor of the law enforcement function. So that's an accountability as well. There's some other ways that law enforcement can be constrained and held accountable, but those are the big ones. And so, we certainly need to have folks who are given that much responsibility and that much authority. We absolutely need accountability. I don't argue that. But for those that say, hey, we don't have police accountability, that's wrong. There's plenty. But that's just my police perspective.